Hey guys, Brian O'Brien here with another week of my culinary school journey at the Culinary Institute of America. This is week 6 of semester 2, and it was the last week of my meat fabrication class, a very, very exciting one. But first, let me start talking about the liberal arts classes that I took. In my menus class this week, we received the menu that we actually designed and put together, which was one of our assignments, and we got a grade and we got critiqued, and that was kind of fun. We all went through ours individually, just kind of shared them with one another, and for the most part, we all did pretty well as far as the grades went, and we all put a lot of time into it, and it was a really fun assignment, so that was really cool. We also had a test in menus, which is always challenging, but with the right study habits, which I've developed over my time being here, I managed to do not so terribly. This week was actually the last week of gastronomy, so that was that with Professor Wolf. We did a couple kind of the final week stuff. We did some group presentations. My group, the group presentations were basically on the normal breakfast foods that we have on the typical American breakfast menu, and why each individual ingredient or dish is on there. So for example, my group had eggs, and we had to basically explain eggs and why we have eggs on a breakfast menu like we would somebody from the way back past that has never experienced an American breakfast or anything like that. So that was really cool. That was on Tuesday, and then Thursday we actually had our written final for that class, which we did, and now that class is over. So gastronomy is in the books. Speaking of last class of this particular 3-week block, meat fabrication. Meat fabrication with Chef Kelly. This week we finished our class. It's a Monday through Friday class, and we finished it this week. We started the week off with a whole lamb. Chef got a whole lamb in and started to break it down. He broke it down into primals, which he then gave to the individual teams, and we broke down into sub-primals and then actual usable portions. A little bit later in the week, we actually each got a whole rack of lamb. And the task was to break down that lamb and French it, which is how you take the meat off the bone so it has a nice presentation, and actually do a yield test on it. So we want to make sure that we have a high percentage of yield, so that if you were to be breaking this down in a restaurant, you could sell a bigger portion, and to also see the meticulousness and the hands-on fabrication techniques of actually Frenching a lamb. So really fun stuff. Towards the end of the week, we actually got into poultry. We started with chicken. We trussed chicken, which is basically taking the whole bird that's kind of all spread out and tying it together so it's a nice roast. So we worked on that and tried that over and over until we felt comfortable with it. And then we fabricated it down into the individual portions that breast, thigh, wings, etc. So that was really fun. Actually, we then worked with duck, which I never really worked with before. Really, really cool. We broke that down almost exactly the same way as you would a chicken. Cooking, it's very different because of the amount of fat and the rendering that needs to be done on a chicken or a duck versus a chicken. But that was all really fun. The final for the class consisted of meat fabrication specifically. It consisted of a written test, and then we had a meat identification part of that test, where we would walk around the kitchen. The chef had set up 15 different cuts of protein of different animals, and we had to identify the animal it came from, the cut it was from, and the cooking technique. So for an example, there was what a lot of people would call like a rib roast or a prime rib roast. This wasn't prime, but bone on rib steak, basically roast. And so we actually identified that as beef. We bone in rib roast. It's actually called something else, but that's what you guys would know it as. And then as far as cooking technique, I put dry, because generally you're not going to need to wet cook that kind of a really tender piece of meat. So that's really what it was. And then after that, the very final fabrication test is to truss a chicken and then break it down in a very short period of time and to the precise technique that our teacher showed us. So that's what it was. Meat fabrication in the books. Next week I get into banquets with Chef Ken, and I'm very, very excited about that. It's going to be a high production type of class, and I can't wait to start cooking again. So that's it for me, guys. Week 6 of semester 2 in the books, Culinary Institute of America at Greystone. If you have any questions about what it takes to get enrolled in the school, what it's like to be a student, please feel free to reach out. You can email me at brian@chefbrianobrien.com. You can inbox me directly or just comment below. Thanks again for watching, guys. See you next week.